Are you a psychopath? It's estimated that up to 4% of people are psychopaths. That's 4 in every 100. What comes to your mind when you think of a psychopath? A hollow-eyed nutter hiding behind your shower curtain, wielding a knife? Hannibal Lecter? Jeffrey Dahmer? My ex-boss springs to my mind. If she's not a complete psychopath, she must rank high on the scale. I recently read a fascinating book called The Psychopath Test by Ron Johnson. He made me rethink the ideas I have in my head when I think about psychopaths. According to him, we are surrounded by them. Or perhaps you are one and don't realize. It's not something you pass or fail on a test, rather more you score high or low. So it's a bit of a grey area. We're mistaken to think that all psychopaths are serial killers. They're not always violent or commit crimes. In fact, they walk among us and often go undetected. The traits that make them psychopaths can't be seen externally. They are incapable of feeling empathy, remorse, guilt, fear, or even love. They have no idea what these emotions feel like. But if they grow up in a loving, stable environment, they know how it should look and learn to mimic the behavior of these feelings, allowing them to fly under the radar and go undetected. Robert Hare, a renowned forensic psychologist, says that there is no cure or treatment has ever been found to successfully treat a psychopath. There's no medicine or operation where you can implant empathy. They're so devoid of emotion that for them, witnessing a brutal murder is like watching someone peel an apple. Their body doesn't react in a normal way. They can tell a massive direct lie to their partner, parent, or best friend without breaking eye contact, without feeling the burning sensation of shame. Their hearts don't begin to race, and they won't fidget or break a sweat. That's why they are able to cheat lie detector tests. You know, there is a species of spider that can mimic ants. They have a false waist and are covered in reflective hair to simulate the shiny body of an ant. They have coloured patches around their eyes to make their eyes appear simpler. They fool the ants by copying their behaviour. They rise up their front legs and wiggle them like ants' antennae. These spiders fool the ants into thinking they are one of them, so they can hunt from within. They kill and eat just enough to keep them feasted and full without drawing attention to themselves. Their parasitic, malicious behaviour is much like a psychopath's. We know a psychopath can't feel emotions like normal people. However, they can feel excitement and adrenaline. So they crave it like we crave water. This doesn't mean they all go on killing sprees to satisfy this thirst. They often satisfy it through addictions to sex, engaging in dark fantasies, having affairs, drug or alcohol abuse, gambling, extreme sports, risky behaviour, conning people, or fulfilling positions of high power. Many believe that a disproportionate amount of our world leaders, billionaires, politicians, and even CEOs are psychopaths. Just think, if you have no scruples how you achieve success, can lie compulsively, feel no sympathy for the people you trample on, then reaching the top is much easier, right? They believe they're more deserving of success. The rules don't apply to them. They are above normal people and feel they are stronger because they are not burdened and weakened by the emotions that normal people feel. They fail to see that it's these emotions that make humans able to live together as a society. Without them, we would have anarchy. Many studies have been done, and we know now that a psychopath's brain works differently, or better said, doesn't work properly in one part. This part is called the amygdala. It is responsible for fear, emotions, and motivation. You know that feeling when you almost trip over, or you think you can hear noises in your room at night. Your body gets showered with little needles. You tense up, and the heat rises inside you, and your senses go into overdrive. Well, if you know that feeling, it means that your amygdala is working. Back in the 60s, when psychologists had free rein to conduct experiments on patients, Robert Hare designed a test to determine if someone was a psychopath or not. While working in a prison, he put out a request for psychopaths and non-psychopaths to volunteer to be tested. Prisoners are always looking for a means to escape boredom, so many volunteered. Each prisoner was hooked up to an electricity generator, an EEG machine, and monitors to measure sweat and blood pressure. He explained to them that he would count back from 10, and when he got to 1, they would receive a very painful electric shock. The results were fascinating. The non-psychopath prisoners behaved as you'd expect. Pupils dilating, their bodies tensing up, sweating, and becoming increasingly afraid as the numbers counted back until they received the painful shock. Whereas the psychopaths didn't even break a sweat as the clock counted down. It wasn't until the shock was administered did they react in any way. This was an enormous breakthrough for Robert Hare. This test demonstrated that the amygdala wasn't working properly in the psychopath brain. He repeated the test. This time they knew how painful the shock was going to be, and so should have been even more anxious as the timer counted down to 1. But again, nothing. They had no memory of the pain of the shock they had just received moments before. It's difficult to fathom what life would be like without feeling love or empathy. While studying a serial killer, Robert Hare showed him photos of people in excruciating pain. He asked him to identify the expression, and the psychopath replied, I don't know, but that's the face my victims always make just before they die. So what causes people to become psychopaths? If you're born with a psychopath brain but have not been exposed to violence or trauma, then perhaps you will never develop violent tendencies. It's an age-old argument, nature or nurture. Are they born that way, or it's their environment that makes them that way? Surprisingly, Ron Johnson says psychopaths, sociopaths, and antisocial personality disorder are all the same thing. It just depends what book you're reading. Different journals use different terminology. When reading this, I immediately thought of Amber Heard. I admit I was a little obsessed with the Heard versus Johnny Depp case. Well, she was diagnosed as having antisocial personality disorder. She's a good example of how charming a psychopath can be. She's a far cry from the psychopath stereotype. And if you happen to fall in love with one, just how they can make a mess of your life. So, how do you spot a psychopath? Do you think you might be one? Robert Hare developed a psychopathy test that psychiatrists and psychologists use to diagnose the disorder. It is a checklist of 22 questions. I've attached this test to the comments section. I dare you to take it, and please let me know what you score. It's so important that we are able to detect these people so we don't fall victim to them. If the masses had known Hitler was a nutter, they wouldn't perhaps have willingly worshipped and complied. We already know that the top 1% of the elite are controlling half the world's wealth. If we can understand what drives them, we can come together as the masses and stop them from world domination. Well, folks, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Talk Shop's Listening Nibbles. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye for now.